Hello, Bobby Torres of Frightbox Recording here to tell you why simplicity is the key to success in your home studio. Now, of all the issues we face as home studio owners, I'd say the one thing that comes up time and time again is the issue of overcomplicating the recording and mixing process in our home studios. For whatever reason, we love making things more complicated than they need to be when it comes to recording and mixing, and unfortunately, this really does hold a lot of people back. I see it time and time again. Now, I was caught in this trap for many years, and luckily I eventually saw the light and was able to pull myself out of it, but unfortunately I cannot say the same for others. And I don't want this to happen to you. I want you to make progress in your home studio and not get caught up in making things complicated when they really don't need to be. So now I see this issue happening really in two different categories. The first category is the category of gear, and the second category is the category of recording and mixing techniques. So let's first talk about gear. Now, under the umbrella of gear, I see the same issues coming up time and time again with people obsessing over specific pieces of gear that really don't make much of a difference, if any difference at all. And I would like to clarify some of these pieces of gear. The first thing I'd like to talk about are mic preamps. Now, as you know, you have mic preamps built right into your interface, but you can also go out and spend $5,000 on a single channel mic preamp. Now, it makes sense. You'd think that because there are such high-end mic preamps out there that they'll sound exponentially better than the preamps in your interface. And the truth is, that's not necessarily the case. High-end mic preamps, more often than not, will have a color and a character to them that the preamps in your interface won't have. The preamps in your interface are going to be 100% transparent. In other words, what you put in is what you're gonna get out. I don't care if you're using a cheapo $50 interface. You can make great sounding recordings with cheap interfaces. I know because I do it all the time. This coloration that comes with high-end preamps is a great tool to have in your toolkit, but it's not necessary to make great recordings. Not only that, but the differences between preamps are actually more subtle than you'd think. Now, this leads me to the next piece of gear that people sometimes get hung up on, and this piece of gear are converters. Now, again, you could have super cheap converters like the ones in your $50 interface, or you can go out and spend $10,000 on a set of converters. But I have news for you. Expensive converters are not gonna magically make your recordings better. Now, I know this is going to piss off some gearheads out there, but the reality is that most people cannot tell the difference between different converters. If you do not believe me, there is a great video out on YouTube called Audio Myths. It's a workshop by an acoustician named Ethan Weiner where he breaks down and demonstrates the real differences between preamps and converters, and you will be amazed at how little of a difference, if any, there really are between these pieces of gear. So again, if you're a home studio owner and you're having issues with your mixing and your recording, don't focus on preamps and converters. You're wasting your time. The other thing I see people obsess over are microphones. But the truth is, even cheapo microphones can yield amazing results if you focus on proper techniques and workflows. For example, you can buy a $300 drum mic kit by a company like Samson and make awesome sounding drum recordings. Now, if you don't believe me, I'll leave a link to a song that I mixed that was recorded with super cheap microphones and a dated cheap interface within Reaper using only stock plugins. I'll leave a link below in the video's description so you could check out that song. So again, if you're having issues with your recording and you think it's your microphones, it's probably not. Don't focus on that. Keep it simple and focus on solid techniques. The truth is, if you have an interface, I don't care what it is, and a handful of basic microphones, you can make great sounding recordings wherever you are. Now, the next problem I see come up time and again is the topic of using overly complicated and convoluted recording and mixing techniques. Now, I see this happen in all areas of recording and mixing, but I want to focus on a few examples just to highlight where I see these issues often come up. Example number one, if you have a great guitar tone dialed in, all you need is one microphone to capture that guitar tone. Adding a bunch of other close mics and a room mic and blending in multiple guitar tones is not gonna make your guitar tone huge. As a matter of fact, by overcomplicating the process like this, you're gonna end up with a way smaller, out of phase guitar tone because there's too much going on in your mix. Remember, guitar tones are harmonically rich, and if you combine multiple microphones, you really have to make sure that these mics are in phase with one another. And the same thing goes for when you're blending multiple amps together. Now, time and time again, people will send me projects to mix, and they'll have a ton of microphones on the guitar cab, and I'm gonna be honest, most of the time, I just end up using one of the tracks because it's the only track that sounds decent. Now that's example number one that I see come up time and time again. Example number two is overcomplicating drum miking, and more specifically, kick drums. I don't know what it is. People are obsessed with adding like 3 microphones on a kick drum. Now, I have nothing against using more than one microphone on your kick drum, but in reality, you really don't need more than one kick mic in order to achieve a great sounding kick drum sound. A single large diaphragm dynamic mic within your kick drum with the right mic placement will yield a nice, fat, super tight kick drum sound if your kick drum is in tune. And that's the thing I see happen quite often is people will send me tracks that have like 3 mics on a kick drum, but the kick drum isn't even in tune. So again, keep it simple, focus on the things that matter. And the final example I want to bring up, and this is more of a mix issue, is people using just way too many plugins within their mix. I promise you don't need 11 plugins on your vocal track to yield a great vocal sound. I think the issue really is that because it's so easy to buy a bunch of plugins, we think we need to use all of them. And I'm gonna be honest, the longer I do this, the less plugins I actually use. And the reason is simple. Through my own experience and also working alongside other professionals, I've come to realize that it all comes down to solid workflows and techniques. There's no magic bullet plugin under the sun that's gonna magically make your vocal or guitar or drum sound amazing. Again, it all comes down to how you use your plugins, even if they're stock plugins, not the plugins themselves. So again, if you notice you have a bunch of plugins loaded on all of your tracks and you're still not happy with your mixes, I highly recommend taking a step back and analyzing your workflow. Now I know with all of the different conflicting information out there, it can be confusing. And I don't want that for you. I want you to be able to cut through all of the clutter so you can achieve great results with the gear you have right now. So I've put together a 5-step guide for better heavy mixes that you could download for absolutely free. There's a link below in the video's description so you could achieve great sounding results with the gear you have and the plugins you have right now. No need for expensive, unnecessary gear. So again, keep things as simple as possible in your home studio. Don't worry about mic preamps or what plugins you're gonna buy. Just focus on solid recording and mixing techniques. That's where your real results are gonna come from. I've been doing this for 15 years, and with every passing year, I use less gear and my process becomes more and more simple for this very reason. And in my opinion, this is why simplicity is the key to success in your home studio. If you found this video helpful, like, comment, subscribe, and share. And don't forget to click the little bell icon so you can be notified every time I upload one of my weekly videos on all things metal and rock production. You can both like and follow me on Facebook and Instagram. Links are in the description below. And again, download my 5-step guide for better heavy mixes. There's a link below right within the video's description so you can achieve better results with the gear you have right now. Till next time, happy recording and mixing.